Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. We're really thrilled to have Phil Ehr, who is our Democratic candidate for the Florida 1st Congressional District, and also a former DAUK member. So we're really thrilled to be hosting him today, and we're really looking forward to hearing from him and everything he has to say. And my name is Rebecca, so I'm the chair of the DAUK Tax Committee, and I'm going to be handing it over to Carol Moore, who is a Florida voter and former DAUK chair, and she has a long list of credentials. I'll let her introduce herself. And then we also have Jihan Peterson, who is a Florida 1st voter who lives in London as well. So I'm going to hand it over to them so that they can warm Phil up and have a conversation before he tells us a little bit more about himself. And then during the second half of the hour that we have, we'll do a Q&A. So if at any point you have questions, feel free to put them into the chat box. And then either myself, Carol, or Jihan will read the questions out for you so that it helps keep the conversation going. So again, any questions, just put them into the chat box, and I will hand it over to Carol and Jihan.
Thank you, Rebecca, and welcome everyone. And Phil, thank you so much for taking time today to brief us on what's happening in Florida 1 in Florida, and let us know how we can support you in winning in November. As Rebecca said, I was the former chair of DAUK. I also, after 16, that sad night, we started a women's caucus here in London. But also in 17 was when I first met Phil. And he told me about the fact that, he was retired from the Navy at a young age, I might say, and had been on his last assignment here in the UK, which is why he was based here with his family. But he really felt that he wanted to make a big commitment to see that America was going to go in the right direction with the Democrats, and he was going to run in Florida 1, where he had served in the Navy at the start of his career. I was thrilled, and we had some fundraisers here. It was a tough race in 18, but it's great to know, Phil, that you are running this year when we have such a top ticket in Vice President Biden and now Kamala Harris. And it is so motivating to bring Democrats out to vote. So with that, I'm going to hand over to let Jihan say a few words, and then hear about what's going on in the Panhandle and what the path is where you see your race can go into November. Jihan, your turn.
Yes, thank you. When Carol wrote me the other day telling me that this was going on, I jumped at the chance because I am a Florida 1 voter. My mom lives in Fort Walton Beach. She is retired civilian working at Eglin Air Force Base. So even though I only really have known the area since I was 18, I go back almost every year. Myself and my Danish husband decided to get married in Santa Rosa Beach because the beaches are so beautiful there. Some of the most gorgeous beaches I have ever seen in the world. So we definitely have to protect the Emerald Coast. But I was excited because this is an important election. I get Matt Gaetz' newsletters just to, I don't know, maybe I'm a masochist and I like to read bad stuff, but it just terrifies me every time. So as much support that I can give you, and also what can I do from here to help mobilize my friends and family, because that district is primarily military, and meaning they are 96% Republican sometimes. And when I ask my friends and family, okay, well, let's let's vote down ballot Democrats. And I think it's changing this year, but there's always been a bit of apathy in the past just because they know it's going to be the same. So I'm just curious to hear from you, what can I do to help you? And how can I mobilize my friends and family there?
Well, I have a swell in my chest of love and respect for everybody here, especially the speakers. We just met Jihan and Carol. Thank you all so much for helping to arrange this. And Rebecca, you and I have met in Washington and talked about residency-based taxation, which I'm for, which I want to champion. So we'll deal with that, later on in the program today. And lo and behold, who pops up on my screen but Eve Hersov, at least on my screen, it's the lower right. Eve and I were parents together as our children were going through primary school in London. So we've known each other for decades as well. So it's just great to see your name there, Eve. I know you've been with me, and I appreciate that. So Jihan, this is our first time meeting. Yes, Gaetz is awful. Here's some good news outside my campaign, just to color the district a little bit. There's another very awful state legislator whose name is Mike Hill, and he is in the Florida state's first district in the House of Representatives there. He just lost his primary. To someone who is not on the radical agenda that he is, although she has yet to demonstrate the courage to stand up to Matt Gaetz. We'll just see, and she's taken money from his family. But nonetheless, it's a good step showing that Northwest Florida voters have the gumption to not just follow the good old boys as we've had here for such a time. So, gosh, now did I hear you right? You got married in Santa Rosa Beach?
I did. I got married in Santa Rosa Beach in 2006. Yes, in a beautiful church there, and had the reception right on the beach, and had friends and family from all over the world, and they loved it. They loved the area.
I got a little nervous when you're starting to tell the story because that is the Emerald Coast, and we don't necessarily want too many people coming over to this.
Yeah, that's true.
And having said that, no, people should come. They should visit. We've got dune lakes out in Santa Rosa Beach area, and it's just a great place. But it is threatened by Matt Gaetz and Governor Mike Huckabee. Huckabee is behind a long-term project that is manifest now to basically steal public beaches for elite use. There's some legal things going on with that I will remain an ally to our economy and to our voters and everybody who doesn't, live right on the beach, to make sure that there is customary uses preserved. So that's a local issue, but it's so central to our district, and it's bipartisan. It's one of the elements that give me confidence. It should give us confidence that we can win this race. So yes, indeed. Thank you.
That's good to know, Phil, because I don't think my friends and family know that.
Yeah. So for everybody else, the district itself is in the far western panhandle of Florida. We border Alabama to the west and Alabama to the north, and it's roughly in the shape of a rectangle. And then on the eastern border, we've got Walton County and some of Holmes County up to just forming the north-south line down to the Gulf. So we've got 5 counties. Escambia County, it's most populous, is where the Pensacola area is located. Pensacola area is our major city. And I was ordered to Pensacola as a second-class petty officer in the Navy. And that's when I fell in love with the beaches and the whole naval aviation theme. It was just Officer and a Gentleman. The movie had just come out. Top Gun had not yet come out, or I probably would have been not qualified, because there's tons more qualified people to join this program than I did. I got it just over the wire. And established residency, got my commission, my wings, and left and served everywhere else. And as Carol has mentioned, that ended up taking me to London for 2 of my last 2 tours. And it was wonderful. We raised our kids there. We have 2 girls who are now young adults, and they went through the British school system. as I was serving my country. And my wife had resumed her career. She's an attorney, was in the financial district, and is now working for outside the proper financial district, doing something else. But she's a compliance attorney and just overall great person. So I have roots. What I'm saying is I've got roots in London. I have deeper roots in the cradle of naval aviation, but professional roots. But family is living in the UK, and it's all good. And I feel wonderful being here with Democrats abroad. I recognize the challenges of civilians living abroad and military folks living abroad. So I'm bonding in fondness here for everybody on this call. But to kind of understand a little bit more about me, I would like to try to convey how I will serve as a congressman. And to do that, I actually need to take back to a day in 1989, at the height of the Cold War in my service in the Navy. Just imagine, we were a naval aircrew flying alone over icy seas, far from home, unarmed and unafraid, into the teeth of the Soviet war machine. A pair of Soviet armed fighters intercepted, flashed their missiles, and ordered us to depart. We stayed the course. The hostile fighters maneuvered aggressively, blasted their exhaust into our engines, risking collision, tossing us around the fuselage, and compromising our ability to maintain course and altitude. And that danger was real. Yet we remained on station to capture the signals that revealed what the Russians tried to hide. And that was just one in a long series of classified reconnaissance missions flown day after day and year upon year for decades to keep the Cold War from turning hot. I learned a great deal from my naval service. First, vision is mission critical. We simply cannot fight an enemy we can't see, whether that enemy is North Korea's nuclear threat, COVID-19, or global warming. Signals we reported up the chain of command saved lives and made America stronger. We need leaders in Washington with their eyes open, prepared to act. Second, risk factors in everything worthwhile. Those who live financially privileged and risk-free lives find it difficult to understand the integrity and sacrifice required for a life of public service. We need leaders in Washington we trust to stand for what is right, even when it's not popular. Third, there's no substitute for people. Our military isn't superior because of our weapons or technology. We have the mightiest fighting force in the world because of the smart, ethical, and brave men and women who are out there every day keeping us safe. And let's face it, these are tough times. More than 170,000 American lives lost to COVID-19, and it didn't have to be this severe. Tens of millions unemployed, small businesses shattered. And when the government quit the fight, they betrayed doctors, nurses, and first responders and abandoned children, essential workers, and the rest of us. So they hide behind distractions, distortions, and lies to amplify divisions among us. No wonder people took to the streets demanding truth and justice from a failing government. Now is the time when we need competent leadership the most. This election gives us all an opportunity to begin America's revival. We can elect people based on their record of service and leadership. We can elect leaders with vision beyond their personal ambition and headline news. We are on the threshold of a new day where truth, honesty, morality, and a commitment to American ideals matter. Yes, the soul of our nation is at stake in this election. And that's why I'm in the race. As your reconnaissance officer, I recognize the grave danger in our current course. Duty compels me to sound the alarm and stand up for our country. So I'm asking you today to trust me to represent you, Florida District 1 voters on this call, and to move Northwest Florida and our country forward with honor. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Phil. So I was hoping you might be able to tell us a little bit more about why the Florida 1st District, and maybe tell us a little bit more about your opponent. And for those people on the call who aren't necessarily familiar, I know that it is a Matt Gaetz, your opponent, is very damaging for the American people. So can you tell us what are the things that you're going to do that are going to be different?
Okay, so you need people need to understand the context of, as you say, the incumbent Matt Gaetz. He is a nationally known rising figure in the Trump world. He is probably going to be speaking next week at the Republican National Convention, just to show, and I'd say that just to show his rise within Trump world. He is dangerous as a legislator. His first bill was to abolish the Environmental Protection Agency. He often creates legislation and sponsors legislation that is reckless in nature, following the ugliest of recklessness within our legislation. He wanted to. He was the only vote in the entire United States House of Representatives to vote against a human trafficking bill that did become law in the end. But you've got to figure why is this person acting like this as a legislator? Second, he's dangerous in the rhetoric that comes out of his mouth. 60 Minutes did a profile of him probably 3 months ago now, where he was identified by 60 Minutes as the source of the lie that President Trump later heard and ended up canceling a U.S. grant to a U.S. or NIH grant to a U.S. nonprofit scientific group that has a global mission of monitoring the pandemic. And Matt Gaetz was part of that group to say, oh, this virus escaped from the lab in Wuhan, and we're paying $3.7 million into that lab. Fabrication, no basis. Trump heard it, summarily canceled that grant, and as a result, we are less capable, or we are less prepared to monitor and deal with the virus. Additionally, the whole politically driven response to this crisis that we're in, you can imagine a political chain of command with Donald Trump at the top, Governor Ron DeSantis second in this command chain of politics, and Matt Gaetz third, and then into our district that is fortunately pushing back in some areas. But they are discounting public health science, and they are on the reckless path that has Florida joining other parts of the United States as being a hotspot and sometimes leader of disease transmission, transmission, and deaths. Our part of Northwest Florida is not being hit as severely as South Florida, Miami area. However, we are right up contributing to the redness that you might see on a chart of our state, and it's awful. His leadership there is not leadership; it's reckless, and he descends often into what we in the military would call dishonorable conduct. He's been the subject of multiple ethics hearings within the House Ethics Committee. The Florida Bar has taken him up as someone who is pushing the envelope of dishonorable conduct within the legal community, and he welcomes white supremacist sentiment into his campaign, and we have many instances of that. One of which is he most famously invited a Holocaust denier as his guest into the State of the Union address, and he's trying to walk that back, but he can't, and because he knew what he was doing, and there are many other instances of that. You might have seen that there's a incident made national news anyway for someone throwing a slushie at him at one of his town halls. That happened here in Pensacola, and within that town hall, there is also indication or demonstration of welcoming white supremacist, nativist, blood and soil type sentiment into his campaign. This man is dangerous. He has recently endorsed 2 candidates that are on the QAnon train, one of which is in Florida, and fortunately this Republican candidate that Matt Gaetz endorsed in the primary, well, she won the Republican primary, different than what most observers would have thought, so highlighting the danger. But that candidate is in a pretty heavily Democratic district, so probably not going to get in Congress. However, Matt Gaetz also endorsed a candidate who is on the QAnon conspiracy train in Georgia, in the state of Georgia, who is in a safe Republican district. She probably will get into Congress. And if we don't stop Matt Gaetz here with this race right here, right now, you're going to have both of them teaming up with some others of like minds to support that kind of theory, even in a Joe Biden administration and a Harris administration. So that is part of why I'm asking for your help in this race, financially, spreading the word, and we can go on. Anti-Gaetz sentiment is the primary reason why I have our campaign has done very, very well, and we can maybe discuss how well and get some numbers behind that. But also, I'll take that. But the more you know about me, the more you're going to like me. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, let's get on. Phil, let's talk a bit. Excuse me. Sorry, about the state of the race. What are you seeing are the main issues that voters are talking to you about that they feel electing a Democrat could change and make their future better?
Okay, well, the big issues are obviously COVID, people going to school, businesses reopening, people being safe while that's going on, and also, and the economy. These things go together. But let me just tell you that we were able to commission, we have the resources, and we were able to send a poll into the district. The first time a recognized Democratic polling company has surveyed the district, and it has come back to say and to confirm that this beach issue that Jihan and I were talking about is bipartisan, which we knew, and is a vote getter. So yes, that is a big issue, keeping public access to public beaches secure and reinstating the legal doctrine of customary use that Tallahassee and the previous governor signed into law just before he went up to the US Senate. And Matt Gaetz is silent on that, and he's in league with those people who are working very deliberately into cordoning off sections of beaches and destroying the good-natured and long-lasting recreational use of the beach. So I think it's the beaches, and it's the economy, and it's COVID, and it is also our national security. In that, as Jihan mentioned, we have the largest military community of any congressional district in the nation, and I, as a military career military veteran, retired naval aviator, I am a good fit for this district, whereas Matt Gaetz is wrong. And this poll has shown that the contrast allows people who are Republican and people who haven't heard of me to recognize me and vote our way. I perform very well in that poll. So even though it's a Cook Political Index, you can look up as R+22. And if you were to take all the Democrats plus the independents, we call the no party affiliation in Florida, if you add those up and you add up all the Republicans, we still lose. But there's a lot of soft Republicans here, meaning they register that way so that they can vote in county races and other races where there usually are not Democrats running in the primary, that they vote in the primary so they can have a voice. And we can win those people. The data shows it, and our anecdotal observations indicate that.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you. I'll hand over to Jihan.
Yes. So I kind of have a threefold maybe question to what you just said. So considering the congressional district is so heavily military, and my mom being, ex-civilian, and basically all of her friends and ex-colleagues are either civilian or active duty or retired active duty. So then how do you stand out in a county that is so predominantly Republican? And the second part of my question to that is, with COVID, because it's so heavily military, at least from what I can see from my mom's friends and colleagues, they're kind of insulated from it because they're government employees. So they haven't really felt the economic effects of it, is what I've been told. However, I also have friends who are in the tourism industry and hospitality. And I have a friend who lives in watercolor who just had to shut, even though it's a very, wealthy, affluent area, had to shut down her events business due to COVID. And she'll never admit it, but I think she votes Republican. So how can I get to her? How can I, so those are my two questions.
Okay, duty, honor, country. What did George Washington say when he gave us his inaugural address? We are Americans first. We are not party actors first. So the way to get to military folks and voters in general is to highlight my record of service to our country and my qualities of leadership that would not be developed, would not be rewarded in the United States Navy if I was not knowing how to handle a job. And a job of a representative is to focus on the people, not like what Matt Gaetz is doing, focusing on legal problems in the White House and his own personality development, or whatever you call it, on Fox News and actually more egregious cable news. So people understand that Matt Gaetz is not providing representation. He's just being a partisan hack, and not partisan even in the conventional way, but a Trump hack. And he is right with them. That's why he's going to be at the speaker at the RNC next week. And people are tired of it. So highlighting my service in bonding in that way with retired military, with other veterans, and with families, especially families, is the way to get there. I'm pleased to have been endorsed by a number of labor unions. I have the Florida AFL-CIO endorsement and a Teamsters endorsement, but also the American Federation of Government Employees, who have 3,000 members here, including in our district, 3,000 members. Lots of people that work on Eglin Air Force Base, Naval Air Station Pensacola, Hurlburt Field. These are all big military complexes here, and that they are getting in touch, and we're activating them. So those are ways to get there. Again, if you haven't seen my campaign video, please do go see it. It's airforcongress.com. It's a 2-minute version, has a naval aviation theme. But guess what? Those producers interviewed me for an hour and a half and captured why I'm running and who I am and why I'm running. It's great, and that has a military theme because, frankly, as I said earlier, I'm just answering the call of duty that has been consistent throughout my career. This is where duty calls me to stand up, because we've got attacks on our Constitution. At some level, all of these military folks must understand that what we're seeing from Gaetz is nothing like the leadership and the integrity or the honor that they and I share, is what we lived our careers by. It saved us from lots of issues. The other part of your question, please remind me, the other part is?
No, I was just saying that with what I've seen, what I've heard from my mom and her friends, that because they're military, they've been a little bit, I guess, insulated economically.
Isolated, right. Isolated from the economic impact of the COVID shutdown.
Correct. Just
okay.
due to government connection. Right.
Now, a lot of some of the leaders here, and specifically out in Okaloosa County, where Eglin is situated, they have not taken the public safety precautions that many people on this call are from London, that the British have. And that is showing up as to why we are contributing to the cases and the deaths here in our area of Florida. So a lot of those folks do have school children as well, and the local schools they're part of the, okay, let's bring everybody in. brick and mortar. That was a directive from Tallahassee to do that. But there's a lot of people are skittish, and if you're a parent that are making a decision to send your child into a school situation because you have no other choice, you're in harm's way. If you're a teacher or a substitute teacher or anybody else who's employed within the school system, my thoughts and prayers are with you. And my advice to everybody is to be as safe as we possibly can.
So for those,
they are not insulated in that way.
Okay. Go ahead. So for those constituents, I guess the message is more the health, safety. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I will do my best to propagate your message to the people I know down in Florida 1.
Well, that's great. I'm looking forward to working with you on that and learning more about your network out here.
100%. The next question is, what do you think of the voter suppression tactics Trump is using to try to win the election, and what impact is that having locally for your election in the Florida 1st District?
Yeah, voter suppression is real, and it's happening. I know each of the supervisors of elections within the 5 counties that are within our congressional district, and I have a good working relationships with them and their offices. So I believe that the suppression is much more of a national messaging issue. It may turn into a local messaging issue if the president is able to get local county sheriffs to put deputies at polling locations, as being talked about. The messaging that the postal system is not to be relied on is having an effect. Is starting to be confusion about how to vote. We in the Florida Democratic Party have been promoting vote by mail for a very long time, and it is going very well. And vote by mail in Florida happens to be a place where President Trump says, okay, all right, Florida can do it because they can do it. So I think that mitigates the local suppression tactics, but we are very aware of, and we are doing our part to give people confidence that their vote matters. And indeed, as Michelle and Barack Obama have said last week at the Democratic National Convention, it is required. It is required to have a plan, and it is required to just get out and vote. And their personal advocacy for voting is resonating with people in our district with whom I speak. And let me just go back and say also that part of my campaign's message to overcome suppression is to provide realistic hope, realistic path that our poll also indicates. Matt Gaetz has a 43% re-elect rate in our poll. That means the rest of us are either a hard no to re-elect him, or are open to another candidate. I'm that other candidate. This is a path toward victory for us.
We have a question in the box from, is it PJ? What are your plans for bringing more jobs and industry to Escambia County?
Escambia County is the westernmost county. It's where Pensacola is located. So part of what that answer is the infrastructure bill, the federal infrastructure bill. Where is that? Well, I thought it was the height of legislative malpractice for the 2017 Congress in 2017 to put controversial topics ahead of what we needed economically to create jobs, long-term good jobs, and that would be building projects, and that would be future-looking industries, and to correct a lot of the waterworks that are here, and to work on roads and sewer systems, alternative energies, green energies. Those are the types of things that I would do and prioritize in the to build jobs in Escambia County. We've got lots of lost opportunities in these 4 years when Donald Trump has not focused on that. He's focused on handing over trickle-down economics on steroids to the great detriment to our future as measured by the debt and the deficit, and that was not going down before COVID and is in the tank now. Now I know that we need to have spending now for people and working people and their families and small businesses, not big corporate buybacks or more corporate tax breaks that will allow the abuse that we've seen by corporations who bought back their stocks and have just not created the jobs and not started to work on the debt as was promised back then. So again, my plan, PJ, in summary: infrastructure jobs, focus first on economic policy that prioritizes people over corporations.
Perfect. I have another question for you, Phil. How has the pandemic impacted your campaign? What are the positives and the negatives?
Yeah. So so in Florida, we have this opportunity to access the ballot by one of two ways. One is to pay a fee to get on the ballot, and another is to collect enough signatures on candidate petitions. And I embarked on candidate petitions, and that involves voter contact at farm or at fairs and out in the streets and knocking on doors. And when the COVID was starting to come down and the activities started to be canceled, we were the first congressional campaign reported in the Pensacola News Journal, and I think the second congressional campaign in the state of Florida to shut down our petition gathering operations. So we recognized it, we acted, and it was reported on by the Pensacola News Journal as having stopped what is an inherently dangerous activity, particularly with people with, who were then thought to be in high-risk categories: older people, people with pre-existing conditions. So we took action. It's a demonstration of, let's put what priority first. Safety is always first. So our whole concept of campaigning has changed. And fortunately, we have nimble and very talented and experienced minds that aren't fighting the last war, fighting the last campaign. We've got a lot of events such as we're on now. And when I go out, we are practicing social distancing to a good degree. I had the privilege of going and listening and participating and speaking at Black Lives Matter protests here in Northwest Florida, and we were maintaining good awareness and good protective measures throughout those events. So it is disruptive, but let's make the best out of the situation. We are able to gather. We're more oriented to gathering good folks such as yourself to events like this that we probably would not have otherwise. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question is, well, I figured it wouldn't be much of a Democrats Abroad webinar if we didn't talk about issues that Democrats Abroad cares about most. So, yes. I mean, we've already talked about voting, because obviously voting is #1, super important. But also our tax issues, and given that you've lived abroad, you already know about all the tax problems that Americans abroad face. So I guess the question is, will you be a champion of residency-based taxation once elected? And also, if you could tell us a little bit more about what kind of tax problems your family and you have faced as you've lived abroad.
Okay, so recognize that I was overseas in a mostly, let's see, from the year 2000 to 2008, I was on active duty, and our family was protected by the Status of Forces Agreement. And my wife, however, has her own independent career. So she's paying British taxes and U.S. taxes in that time. Then after I retired in 2008, I stayed in London, volunteering mostly. I was doing some studying with King's College, and I was a teaching fellow at the British version of our war college out at Shrivenham, the Joint Services Command and Staff College. And it was great and wonderful, but and I also volunteered and got a tiny bit of a compensation for chess in schools and communities, where I would teach the game of chess to lesser privileged schools than our daughters attended around London. And that was quite rewarding. Our taxes then were my wife needing to pay dual taxes, and myself not earning enough to have to deal with it on a from my income. Now my wife is stuck. I mean, she, like you, she's got to pay too, and she has no interest in renouncing citizenship, as Boris Johnson has done. And so we just recognize the inherent inequity of this kind of nationalistic or just cookie cutter type of approach to taxation, where the Congress did not understand, or apparently did not understand or respect the citizenship of Americans abroad, and that except to take money from them. So we need to put it back into equitable situation that is in line with all the other countries. So yes, I intend to be a sponsor or co-sponsor of legislation early on, and it matters to Northwest Florida voters as well. Jihan is one example of that. And who else is on our call? Is it Jenny was also from Northwest Florida? Well, there's a few others that that are from my own little district. PJ, you too? Very cool. Mm-hmm. So they're on this little call. We got 3 people, 4 if you include my family who's not here, who are in this situation. And our girls, who are now young women, one of whom is making a living, is growing into the Americans living abroad. What do I do with taxes? And it's just, it's just a really, I have to pay this? Like, why? I have to explain this to a young adult, and it's just wrong. So I want to be a champion of it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
and I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, on top of that, I get emails and phone calls from people on a constant basis who they're only on Social Security. They're also on British benefits, and they get double taxed on that. It's just insane.
Right. And the what is it? The windfall, the quote, the alleged windfall profit that Americans abroad are getting because of that. That's a mischaracterization of reality, and I'll be happy to be part of the voices in the House to challenge those people who are those members of Congress who are lazy of mind, and possibly I don't know what other interest there would be in the executive to do that except more laziness of mind and not looking at the revenue neutral aspect of residency-based taxation and the equity of paying out Social Security for those who paid into it.
Yeah, well, with the Social Security, it's the windfall elimination provision where up to 30% of someone's Social Security is deducted if they've worked, if they've paid into the equivalent of Social Security abroad and also partially into Social Security in the US. And it already has bipartisan support. There's bills both in the House and the Senate that has an insane number of co-sponsors on those bills already. It just needs to get that extra little push in order to help those people who are the most vulnerable, right? So that's a real easy win. It's a super easy win.
It is. It is an easy win, and I'm less personally impacted by the Social Security question because I'm not yet at that age, but I have benefited from Social Security benefits in a short period of time in my early 20s when I needed it, and it was there. And I want to make sure that kind of social safety net guarantee is there for other people that need it in times when they need it.
Thank you. Phil, let's switch now maybe to the national picture. And those of us abroad, it was a little late to watch the Democratic convention last week. We were able to get clips on YouTube and so forth, and saw some of the fantastic speakers, of course. But we were wondering how you saw it play in your area, and who you thought might have really had an impact among the voters in Florida 1.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. Some of us were on group chats like this watching it. I happened to be watching it solo, not with anybody on screens. So I was super impressed with Bernie Sanders' talk. Bernie Sanders was one of unity. He didn't back down from what his policy preferences and prescriptions and passionate commitments were. And I thought it was just a wonderfully good speech. I was starting to type up to my friends, hey, Sanders, ding. But then Michelle Obama came on. Just blew him out of the water as far as, impact goes. But wow, what a down-to-earth, let's just look at the reality of it from a woman who's been there, seen it, and is still connected with regular folks' kitchen tables, and being a parent and being a citizen and recognizing the grave danger to it. And then the next day, when President Obama came on, he laid it out in stark terms as well, in a perfect setting, I thought, and in Philadelphia with the writing of the Constitution on the walls behind and around him. And so when Carol, I'm asked that question, I'm asked that question, from people here. There's this one person who didn't ask me the question, but who did invite me to speak just a couple of days ago. He's the lead organizer of Black Lives Matter protests here in Pensacola. And he's endorsed our campaign, which I'm very grateful for. And he's also been appointed by the mayor into a committee, citizens committee, advisory committee on policing reform. So he's respected, he's young, he's new to the political activist scene here. And so I went out to Graffiti Bridge, which is our spot for such things. And I was able to tell him and recommend to him, because he hasn't seen any of it, go watch Michelle Obama and Barack Obama and really pay attention to what they're saying. So those are the two best speeches there. But I don't want to discount what Senator Harris and Vice President Biden did either. And Vice President Biden, he just boom, boom, boom. And I'm so looking forward to being a partner with him, as I don't focus on what's best for Joe. I want to say what's best for the people of Northwest Florida, my bosses, unlike what Matt Gaetz does. But I'm so looking forward to the reforms, the structural changes, and the cleanup that the Biden-Harris team is going to lead, with me contributing on behalf of the people of Northwest Florida.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Phil, considering we have 6 minutes left, I just want to make sure that everybody knows how they can get in touch with your website. So it's ehrforcongress.com, correct?
That's right. So let me just share a little fun thing with you. So the spelling of my name as 3 letters, E-H-R, is pronounced air, like the stuff we breathe. You know that I flew in the United States Navy. So just as a little funsy thing, we have a nickname for our campaign, and it's up here on my wall. You might want to check that out and recognize it. So you all are, I consider you all, if you want, we'd welcome you into the Air Force and join us. So it's ehrforcongress.com. It's Phil Ehr, my name mashed together on Twitter. Engage with us there. Engage with us on Facebook. And for the community of people that are Democrats abroad, and more broadly, Americans abroad, and more relevantly, Americans abroad, I want to ask you to send out into that community that I'm for residency-based taxation, and proudly for it. And I will be, sadly, one of the few voices championing it. Maybe we can, and we intend to get more people on board to have that correction in law made. So that's what you can do You can donate to us up to, please make sure you're a U.S. Citizen or have a permanent residency status, happen to be visiting overseas for some reason. But please go online on my website. We're on Act Blue, and we have links all around on our messaging. So please do join us so that we
Phil,
can get up on air.
You've got a couple of volunteers for postcarding. Do you do
postcarding? We will be postcarding. Yes, indeed. We will be postcarding. My campaign manager happens to be on the Wookie. There you go. Yeah. So, Keith Presley is my campaign manager. He's taking down notes about postcarding. And yes, indeed, we'd love to have your help there. We have got friends in the District of Columbia who are helping, and other places. We have some volunteers who are outside California that are helping. Let me just tell you also, and I know I've got like seconds left, but one of the measures that you would probably be interested to know is, hey, is my campaign viable? I've told you about the polling data and the 43% result that shows that Matt Gaetz is vulnerable. What I haven't told you is our fundraising. So Matt Gaetz has raised, average congressional races, I'm told, are about $3 million. We're on the path to getting there. We have an average contribution, not quite as good as Bernie Sanders' $27 per contribution. We're at probably 29, but we've got $935,000 accumulated this morning that I saw on my dashboard, and that's more than triple the combined sum of all Democrats in this race in the past 20 years. It's an indication of sea change that we see anecdotally. So take heart, PJ, Jenny, and Jihan. We can do this, and we can do this with the resources to get a message out about a credible alternative, and to put the country over party issue at the at the front to my slogan, which is forward with honor.
Like it. Thank you.
That's great. And I'd just like to say it's super easy to make a contribution. You can even do it via Apple Pay. So very easy. And I think we will hopefully get a postcarding movement going on as well. And I will make sure.
Wookie, yeah, you sign up, Wookie. You look to be the key one there. Good. Okay, yes. Go ahead, Jihan.
And then obviously for all of you Americans abroad in the UK or wherever, remember to go to votefromabroad.org. If anyone needs help registering to vote, especially for your son, PJ.
Oh, so, that's great.
And like I said, I look forward to telling all of my friends and family. And if anybody is keen to, do more for you, I guess they can contact Keith as well directly. Is that okay?
Yes.
Go ahead, Keith.
Nope. Yep. Please do. It's just keith@airforcongress.com.
Perfect.
Yeah. Follow us on social, engage there. And again, as we're wrapping up, I just want to say I'm so proud and so humbled at the same time, and grateful that you've taken some time to focus on our race for an hour, and may that long last, because our country needs this. The better we do in Northwest Florida, the better we're going to be able to deliver 29 electoral votes for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And we need that for our country's sake. So I'm asking you to stand up with me and with the people of Northwest Florida who are going to be the heroes of this story. And I include Jihan, PJ, and Jenny, and any other Democrats or other Americans abroad who recognize that our country is on a grave path and we need to change it, and we need authentic, real leadership and American values in office. So again, thank you very much for organizing this. And I'm just grateful and very happy to have met you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thanks everyone for joining. And I'll send out a follow-up email to everyone that attended. So just in case you didn't get the links, we'll send out the links for Phil's website and campaign and donations, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really glad that we were able to host you today, Phil. Thank you for your time, and Good luck. We're all rooting for you and we're all voting for you.
Okay, thank you.